Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Pali Summer, brought to you by the Buddhist Association of the United States, the Chuanyen Monastery in Carmel, New York, and the Wuju Memorial Library. I'm very happy to be back with you here in this third week of our class, our 10-session intensive class. This is the fifth class. We're halfway through already, believe it or not. And I'm very happy to be joined by several co-hosts that will help us out, both here in the Zoom meeting room and also on the YouTube live stream. For those who choose to join that way, we will be monitoring the YouTube chat and try our best to address any questions that might arise that way too. And so here we are launching into our fifth class. I'm going to share my screen and talk a little bit about what we're doing today. And I should mention, I did unfortunately perhaps put the syllabus for this week up on the monastery's website a bit late. Perhaps you all haven't seen it yet, but it's there, and it looks like this. I actually shared it prior to the beginning of the class. And so today we're going to be covering Pali Primer lessons 9 and 10. That covers the absolutive and the infinitive. And we're also going to take a look. We're going to actually in this class jump over lesson 11, chapter 11, and skip to lesson 12, where we'll find the full conjugation of the present tense. And then in this week, what we're going to be doing is transitioning from Pali Primer to Ger and Krunatilaka. And so that's our second textbook. And we will be looking at that, taking a first look at that today at the end of this class. And I've put in this file, which again you can find on our website, the material that will be covered on Wednesday, or perhaps for you it's Thursday morning, which is the next class. So we'll be doing the exercises in Pali Primer lesson 12. And I should mention that we are doing only a very select and specific number. So they are listed here on my file, and so please, those are the ones to do. And I've given a word variation for one of them. You can find it there. And then we'll be actually launching into our new book, Ger and Krunatilaka. We'll be looking at the initial readings. And just to mention that the way Ger and Krunatilaka is structured as a textbook, there is a set of initial readings with a vocabulary list. And then there is a rather extensive grammar summary. And then at the end of the chapter, there's the other supplemental final other readings, which we will also be doing in this class. And that has its own vocabulary list, and that will be also covered. So now what I'd like to do is first ask if there were any questions about Pali Primer before we launch into chapters 9 and 10, about chapters or lessons 1 through 8. And I can take questions if there was anything very specific which just didn't make sense, even having seen the answer. We could perhaps briefly talk about it. And what I also would like to do, because I was made aware that I may have misspoke in the last session about a specific example, I'd like to cover that now. And so let's look together. I'm now in Pali Primer lesson 7, and I would like to just briefly talk about question or example or exercise 21. So here, I'll read it first. This is 21. Asapuriso kagena navikasa dutang paharati. So our subject of the sentence, our nominative, we can see as the first word, nominative singular, asapuriso, the wicked man. And then we go straight to the verb, as I recommend, paharati, strikes. And then what does he strike? The direct object of the striking is the messenger. But the messenger is being further described with a genitive, navikasa, so the sailor's messenger. And then we have a further piece of information, how it was done, the instrument, and that is, in the instrumental case, kagena. And so putting that sentence together, a wicked man strikes the sailor's messenger with a sword. And so I hope if there were any questions about that, it would clear it up. I don't know if I can see if there are any hands, but I don't see any hands raised. Regina, are there any hands raised that I'm not seeing?
There's one hand that's raised, Abhinav.
Okay, we'll take the one question then. This is, of course, again, specifically about Pali Primer, lessons 1 through 8 first. So, Abhinav, are you there?
Yes, Stephen.
Okay, what was your example number?
It's not an example. It's related to vocative case.
Okay, can you tell me your question?
Can the vocative case be applied to non-humans?
It is in this book, and perhaps it can be. I think anything can be evoked, but we do see it in Pali Primer used for just about anything. Yes, I hope that answers your question.
Okay, thank you, Stephen.
Sure. And now we have Linda. Linda?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can. Which was your question? Which number?
It's exercise 8, number 20.
So lesson 8?
Yes, exercise 8, number 20.
Okay, hang on. Let me get there. Okay, I think I see it. Can you read it for us first, and then
Yes.
and then go for the translation?
Yes. Vanija bandani nagarangha gamang aharanti.
Okay.
So I translated it as the merchants bring goods from the city to the village. My question to you is, gamang, is that accusative singular or dative singular?
It should be accusative singular. And remember that generally, most oftenly, verbs of motion like bringing will take the accusative case as its destination. So it should be accusative.
Okay, but so we have two accusative then, because bandani also accusative.
Yes, that's right. It's a double accusative.
Okay, so but it means to the village.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Stephen.
You're welcome. Okay, it doesn't seem like there are any other questions. Diane, were there any questions present on YouTube that would need answering right now?
No questions.
No questions. Well, I'm so glad to hear it. That means that everyone knows the answer. Okay, fine. Then we could move on to our new material. And this new material is the absolutive form of the verb, which we have been talking a bit about already. And maybe I'll just quickly once more review. So the absolutive is a form of the verb which is also known as the indeclinable participle. So what's a participle? a participle is when a verb becomes typically an adjective. In other words, it no longer functions as a verb, it functions as an adjective or sometimes a noun, and therefore it is not usually declined. It is not usually conjugated like a verb, but it is declined. And so, for instance, when we would have a present participle or a past participle, those forms need to be declined like nouns, and they are not conjugated like verbs. But in this special case, this special kind of formation, which doesn't really exist in a natural way in English, but it sure does exist a lot in Pali and Sanskrit, is indeclinable. And what does indeclinable mean? It means that it always stays the same. It's not declinable. And so it's easy to know because there's only usually one or two forms. These are variants. They're not lending a different kind of meaning. So they don't reflect the person or number like a verb or a case either. And I also would like to mention that sometimes, and in dictionaries, we see that this thing is called the gerund. And I'll tell you why I'm not fond of this term. It's because it leads to confusion, at least for English speakers. Now, for English speakers in the English language, we talk about gerunds, and what are they? They are verbs that have been turned into nouns using the ing suffix. So if I said, for instance, swimming is great exercise, well, swimming is a noun, but it actually comes from the verb to swim. But I've made it into a noun using this ing. And that's what we call in English a gerund. But that is not what a gerund is. And that's not what this is in Pali. And so that's why I try my best to avoid this term, to avoid confusion. It's not because I just don't like it. It's just because it causes a lot of confusion for those who have learned English grammar. And when they hear that word, they think of something very different. And so we are given in the book here several examples of how it is formed. It is typically formed in two ways. The tva suffix, which is probably more common. And so we see here the verb pachati turned into an absolutive by adding the suffix tva, and also in addition it has this vowel put in to smooth out our pronunciation, we might say. So the root is pach, and then we put it together, we have pachitva, having cooked. So notice that in English, we have to use this helping word, having cooked. And so what is being expressed here is that it's an action which is immediately preceding the main action of the sentence. So in English grammar, we might say it has a perfect sense. It's been completed right before the main action or the finite verb. Sometimes, though, an absolutive can have the sense of simultaneity, also happening at the same time. And we probably will see that coming up. And also mentioned in our last session that the absolutive is formed from the root. And so even though we have been learning, for instance, the verb gachati, to go, that verb is formed from what is called a present stem, gach. But the root of that is gum. And so that's what we have here in our third example, gantva. And so it might be a little more challenging in this case to spot the absolutive and understand which verb it is based from. And so we have to know that gantva is based from the root gum, and so we know, therefore, it's related to gachati, and so it's having gone. Sometimes the absolutive is formed with a ya suffix. And so in the first example here, agamya, which comes to agamma, it's having come. So here we have our root, gum, to go, or just perhaps go, and it's being prefixed by a strong or a long A, which sort of reverses the direction. So instead of going, it's coming. And it's using this ya suffix. But in Pali, this kind of collection of consonants doesn't work so well. Things in Pali are often, we might say, smoothed over, more gentle on the tongue. And so agamya becomes, in Pali, agamma. And this effect is sometimes called assimilation, because we can say that this nya sound has been assimilated and smoothed out to agamma. And this kind of smoothing out, we don't have to use these fancy grammatical terms, but we see this over and over again in Pali. For instance, a famous example is the Sanskrit word nirvana. But nirvana doesn't work so well in Pali, so it becomes nibbana. It's sort of smoothed out. And so that's what happens here. And that's why we have to recognize this as the ya suffix, but we don't even see the ya suffix. It's been assimilated. It's sort of in there in a way that we can't visibly see. So that's a brief, again, coverage of the idea of how the absolutive is formed and how it's meant. I mentioned again in our last class, to repeat, that Pali has this special form of the root drish, which has the sense of to see. It's very common in Pali. It's the root that has the word ditti, view, associated with it. And so in Pali we have the present tense pasati, to see, which is related to the word, as you all know, vipassana. And in that word, the prefix v has sort of a sense of a sort of specialness or an enhanced. So vipassana is a sort of an enhanced or special seeing, which is, as you know, translated as insight. So, of course, the idea of seeing doesn't only refer to seeing with the eye, seeing visual objects. It has more of a conceptual sense as well. So if somebody said something to me and I say, I see what you mean. Well, I'm not really looking at something. I see, I grasp it, I understand it. Same thing in Pali. And so in the case of the absolutive of this root, or perhaps we can say of the verb pasati, we might have the absolutive pasitva, but much more common is disva. That's because it goes to the root drish, and we form it as disva. So I think what we can do now is open up to people volunteering to do some of these examples and get a feel for it. Perhaps I'll do a couple or one just to get the ball rolling. And if you'd like to raise your blue hand, I'll try to call on you. And then you can give it a shot too. So here we have, this is exercise 9, number 1. Upasako viharam gantva samananang danang dadati. So here, the first thing I would do is identify, I would scan, I would find my nominative upasako, the lay follower or the lay disciple, and then I would stop at the absolutive, which I recognize as gantva. So having gone, this is the gachati one, this is the gum one, which we just spoke about. So having gone to the monastery, and notice that the object of that going lies right before it, or right next to it. The lay disciple gives, that's the dadati, this is the finite verb, alms, that's dana, a word you probably all know, which is directly related, as you can see, to the verb dadati. And so the root of this verb is da, D and a long A, da. In fact, dadati is what's simply called or the fancy term is a reduplication, which what all of that means is that it's just said twice, dadati. And danang is a sort of form of that, and it means charitable giving or alms. And then we have this samananam, to the recluses or to the monks. And so putting this sentence together, we have, having gone to the monastery, the lay disciple gives alms to the monks. So that's number one. And then I think we can try Christopher. I see his hand up. Would you mind doing for us number 3 first by reading it?
Okay. Daraka upani samharitva matulasa datva hasanti. Having collected flowers, the children give them, having collected flowers and given them to the uncle, the children laugh.
Very good. Perfect. Good. So here we have 2 absolutives, and samharitva, having collected, and also datva, this is the dadati one, the da root, having given. And then we have the finite verb, to laugh, which has the sense of happening after those other things have occurred. So very good. Okay, now we have Fiatra, if you're there.
Hi, can you hear me? Yes.
Yes, I can. Would you do number 5 for us, please?
Number 5, okay. Ludako hatena sara adaya aranyam pavisati.
Yeah, ludako hatena sare adaya aranyang pavisati.
Aranyang pavisati, yes. Yeah. So the hunter, so Sare Adaya, having taken arrows, then so what does he do? He enters the forest.
But you're missing one piece,
Oh,
right?
yeah, sorry, Hatena, yes, with his hand. So, sorry, yes. So with his hand, so having taken arrows with his hand, he's entering the forest.
That's right. That's right. Very good. So here we have adaya, having taken, and then we have our accusative plural, sare, arrows, and the instrumental with his hand, by hand. And then we have our finite verb, enters, pavisati, and the accusative singular, aranyam, the forest. Very good. Thank you. And now maybe we can try Vera for number 7.
Good morning. Vanejo pasanasmin tatwa kudalena sapang paharati. Having stood on the rock, the merchant hits the serpent with the hoe. Vanejo is nominative singular. Pasanasmin locative singular. Tatwa absolutive.
What is the verb? What is the verb tatva comes from, please?
Paharati.
No, the verb tatva is formed from.
Tatwa is stood, standing.
Yes, but can you tell me the Pali verb that is based upon? It's ditati.
Titati.
Yes.
Is it titati? Okay. Then the kudalena is instrumental singular. Sapang accusative singular. And paharati is a verb, third person singular.
Very good. Thank you. And so I think you're right. Another way possibly to take it is to take the absolutive, as I suggested, as a concurrent or simultaneous kind of action. So it could be taken as standing on the rock. The merchant strikes a serpent with a hoe. but it's not necessarily clear that it's one way or the other.
So we can omit the having.
It's possible, I think it's possible to conceive of this as things happening at the same time. Yes, because it is possible that the absolutive is expressing something happening at the same time. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah,
You're welcome. Thank you. Okay, let's try another person. We have Kam Savat.
Hi, Stephen. Number 9.
Yes, please.
It's Darako avatamhi patitwa rodati. Darako is the child. Rodati is Christ. The child Christ having fallen into the pit.
Yes. So having fallen into a pit, the boy or the child is crying. Yes, thank you. Good. Okay. I see here Skylar.
Hi.
Hi. Would you do for us, please, number 11 by first
11.
reading it?
Sunako udakam piriti gahamha nikama mage sayati.
Pitvitva. Yeah.
Pitva. So number 11. So having drunk water. And then you would say an and here. So having,
Sure.
So having drunk water and having left the house. The dog lies down on the road.
Yes. Or even possibly would be possible to take sayati as sleeps, I think.
Sleeps. Okay, sleeps.
Yeah. On the road or the path. Yes. Right. Very good usage of the two. The one. Or it's two. It's two. The two absolutes. Very good. Thank you. Okay. Let's try Irene. If you can unmute. Irene? No unmuting. I don't hear you, but because you're muted. Maybe we'll come back. Oh, there you go. I see you're unmuted now, Irene.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Can you do for us 13, please?
Putto nahatwa batang butwa mancang aruha sayati. Having bathed and having eaten rice and having ascended the bed, the sun sleeps.
Very good. Yes, it's kind of a weird sentence, but this is a typical way, I have to say, that, not this sentence, but a typical way that Pali sentences are sort of stuck together to make very long sentences. So yes, having bathed and having eaten rice, the sun climbs into the bed. Very good. Thank you. Maybe we'll take just a few more. We'll skip around just a bit. Gillian?
Oh.
Jillian, I apologize. Let's see.
No
Let's
problem.
skip.
No problem.
Let's see. Let's take. Would you mind doing 23?
Aha, you're taking me to one I didn't prepare.
Oh,
But I'd love to have a go.
okay. First, just read it. 23.
Yes. Tapaso Tathagata Savakang Disva Vanditva Panyang Puchati.
Yes. So tell me, what is the subject of the sentence? Which one is the nominative?
Tapasko, because it ends in O.
That's right. It's the nominative singular, the hermit.
Singular, and the verb is at the end, and it's Puchati. So,
but we should scan and look for the absolutive first.
Okay. Vanditva. And that having something.
Having seen, that's the drish one.
And disva, having seen and I don't know then.
What is savaka? Do you know that word?
Oh, I did yesterday.
It means a disciple. It's the disciple. And then the
yes.
word right next to it to the left is the genitive of the
yes.
Tathagata.
It's the disciple.
So
yes. Having seen and Vanditvad, the disciple of the Tathagata, the Tapasko did something to the Panham, because that's Panhang.
okay, yeah, I'll tell you. So puchati is the verb to ask, typically to ask a question, and a panha is a question. You may have heard of the questions of King Milinda Panha. So putting this all together, I would translate as having seen the Tathagata's disciple and having paid respects, the hermit asks a question. Do you see that?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Very good. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's try a couple more. Emilia? Perhaps not there. We'll try another one. Sophie?
Hi, yes, can you hear me?
I can. Can you try for us 27?
Yes. Darago, Geha, Nikama, Matulang, Patkositwa, Geham, Babisate. The main object is Darago.
Yes.
The child, and the verb is Babisate is enter. The object in Geham is the child enter the house. And we have two absolutes here. Geha Nikama is leaving the house. Matulam Patkotiswa is calling the uncle. So the whole sentence is leaving the house and calling the uncle. The child enter the house.
Exactly. Very good. Thank you. I think that's exactly right. So we have nikamha, that's one of those ya assimilated kind of absolutives. Nikamati is the verb to enter, and then, or actually it's to go out from. And then pakositva, that's the verb pakositi, to summon or call to. And notice that they take their objects immediately to the left of them. And then we have the finite verb, and then its object is also immediately to its left, gehang. So exactly as she said, that was perfect. And then let's try perhaps, finally, we can try Linda, if she's there, with number 29.
Okay. Kumarasa Sahayaka, Pasadang Ariha, Asanesu Nisidanti.
Pasadang.
Pasadang. So I translated it as having Ariha is having climbed into the palace with having climbed into the palace. Sahayaka is the friends of the boys' friends.
Yes.
Nisidati is sitting on the seat.
Yes. Very good. So putting it all together, so boys' friends, or friends of boys, having climbed up to the palace, sit on seats. Very good.
Right, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so I'll just ask quickly if Diane, if there were any perplexed people on the YouTube that had questions about this exact lesson number 9.
There were a couple of questions that I answered, and I believe I answered them correctly.
Well, I trust you totally. And so I hope they have the answers, and I hope everyone now has gotten their feel for the absolutive and understand how it works. I also would like to ask for those on Zoom, if you have asked your question or participated, if you could lower your hand, and so it doesn't become just a wall of blue hands for me. Please, once you've done your thing, if you can kindly lower your hand. If you haven't been called on yet, you can, of course, keep it raised. Okay, so we're going to move on to lesson 10, which is the infinitive. And the infinitive is the normal way in English we refer to a verb, so it should have a sort of easy way of understanding it. And it's also easily formed with the suffix tung, pachi tung. And it's, of course, in a not finite form. And so it only has one way of being formed. And so we just recognize it immediately as the infinitive. It doesn't have a person, it doesn't have a case, it doesn't have any of that. So again, pachati, pachitung, to cook. And so we have our examples. Maybe I'll do the first one and then we'll do like we've just done in the prior one. We'll do it sort of together. So I'll try maybe the first one. Kumara vanamhi mitehi saha kilitva batang bunjitung gehang davanti. So here we have the subject as the first word, the nominative plural. And then we can scan right up to and stop at the absolutive form, kilitva. That is having played. And then we have our instrumental of accompaniment together with friends. And then we have more information. It's a locative in the forest. Then we can keep scanning and go up to our finite verb, our last word, davanti, run home, gehang. And here is our infinitive, bunjitung, to eat. So it's bunjati in the infinitive, to eat. And what are they eating? Batang, rice or food. And so therefore we have boys, having played together with friends in the forest, run home to eat food, or run home to eat rice. I'll do one more to explain. Number 2. Miga tinang kaditva udakang patung pabatamha oyanang agachanti. Quite a mouthful. So here, our subject are deer plural, miga. So that's our nominative plural, long A ending, right? And we scan, immediately come up to our absolutive, kaditva, having eaten. What have they eaten? Well, deers eat grass. Tinang, having eaten grass, deer, and then here's our finite verb, agachanti, they come to the park, or yanang, and this is a ablative, from the mountain. And then we have our infinitive, patung, to drink, and the object of that is udakang, water. So having eaten grass, deer come to the park from the mountain to drink water. And so I hope you were all able to unscramble that. Sometimes I have to say that in Pali Primer, there's sort of a challenge to unscramble. It's sort of designed to be a little bit like a crossword puzzle, but that's okay because we're learning. It's the main point of this is to learn our case endings and these other forms of the verb. So maybe now I'll try Tet, if you can mute.
Yes, thank you.
And would you mind reading and translating number 4 for us?
Yachako matulasa kudalena avadam kanito ichati.
Yachako is the beggar, singular.
Mhm.
Matulasa kudhalena avadom, avadan kanito. So the absolutive is kanito.
Not absolutive. It's the
Sorry,
it's the infinitive.
the infinitive. Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Yes. Avatam is the pit.
Mhm.
That is the accusative.
Mhm.
Matulasa kudhalena with the whole.
It's instrumental, right?
Instrumental, yes. Matulasa is the uncle.
Yes.
The fourth case, the
Genitive.
Sorry, genitive.
That's right. You're right.
Yeah. So the beggar to dig a hole with the uncle's hole. HT is wishes. So
Mhm.
the beggar wishes to dig a hole with the uncle's hole.
Yes. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Yeah. Okay. And then we have Sin Wee, if you can unmute. And then can you do number 6 for us?
Sure. Gona uyane ahinditva kasa kasa ketang agachanti. Gonar is the bulls, it's the nominative of pro. And then we skim down for the infinitive. It is the, I actually don't have it in this sentence.
There's no infinitive, but there is an absolutive.
All right, so the ahintaba, so wandered, and through the uyane, that's the, sorry, it's a park.
Yes.
That
Which
will be
case?
on the, actually, is it locative?
Yes, I think so. Yes.
Okay, locative. And then gasa ketang agachanti. So agachanti is the third person plural verb. Come to, and then gasa is a genitive. Ketang is actually sorry, I can't remember, but it's actually the field. So I think we talk about sometimes they.
So give me a regular English translation, if you might.
Oh, sure. Having wandered through the park, bulls come to farmer's field.
Right. So gona, which is either bulls or perhaps oxen. It seems a little ambiguous. Either one I think are okay. We scan to our absolutive form of the verb, hinditva, having wandered in locative in the park. And then we go to our finite verb, they come, agachanti. And then we have our accusative object, to the field of the farmer, genitive. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Can we have now Kemia?
Hello.
Hi. Can you do for us, please, number 8?
Sure. Patena nagaram gantun puriso ke hasma nikamati. And I got to go by cart to the city. The man leaves from the house.
Yes, or comes out of, or yeah. Yes, it's kind of odd, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we have this verb as expressed in the infinitive. Yeah. Not my favorite, but you are correct, and that is what I got. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let's try Johan. But I think I'm not in love with 10. Can we? Well, let's try it. Let's try number 10 together. Are you there?
Pro amachkasage ham pavisitum oyane ahindate.
Yeah, amachassa.
amachasa. Subject is a thief. The thief, that he wanders, and he wanders in a place, so it must be the uyane, he wanders in the park. It must be locative to
Yes,
enter.
it is.
To enter parvisitum. So the thief wanders in the park to enter the house of the minister.
That's right. That's what I got. I think it's possible have a memory of people taking this a different way if one unscrambles slightly differently. But yes, that is what I have. The thief wanders in the park to enter the minister's house. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
And let's try now Sophie. If you can unmute.
Yes.
Good. Can you do for us number 12?
Yes. Udakam Otaritwa Patani. We have two participants here. The first one is Udakam Oratiswa. Udakam is the wander. Accusative singular. Otariswa, having descended into, here is the having descended into the water.
Yes.
The second is Vatani.
Well, take Vatani Dovitum together. So what is Dovitum?
Accusative plural.
No, it's not accusative. It's
is to wash.
That's right. It's our infinitive.
Infinitive. Yeah, it's infinitive to wash the clothes. And
that's right.
Rajako is the washerman. Uttam is the accusative singular for the son. Patkosati is cons, the man.
Right. I think you've got it right.
Having descended into water, the washerman calls the son to wash the clothes after descended into the water.
Yeah. Okay. Let me read it out because your connection is breaking up a little bit. But yes. It's a little ambiguous, but what I have is having gotten into the water to wash clothes, the washerman calls for his son. Good. Okay, thank you. Okay, let me see if we can skip forward a bit, get a little bit deeper down here. I think we have Juan. Would you mind doing for us 18?
Yeah. Before I do that, can I ask a question about
yes.
the tenses? Yeah. So I'm still a little bit confused about the tenses that I can use for translating sentences with the gerund or absolutive. So sometimes I notice that the present tense is used.
So the sense of the absolutive is an action which is generally completed right before the main verb of the sentence. But sometimes, as we said, it could be happening at the same time. Yeah?
Okay. So it depends on the sentence.
Yeah. Right? Why don't we back up actually to 16, although I did say 18, because I see there is a absolutive there. And why don't you do 16 for us, because that contains that. Would you mind?
Yeah. Gamam ha nikar mitwa nagare wasitun ichanti. Nara, that's the norm, plural form of nara. So gamam ha is a ablative case.
Yeah. And what is nikamitva?
That's the gerund.
Yes. Well, absolutive. It's the absolutive. And how would you translate it?
I
don't hear you. It's what verb is it based upon, first of all?
having left from the village.
Yes, that's right. With the ablative, having left from the village or leaving from the village, and then go right to the finite verb, the last word in the sentence, ichanti.
That's hope. Men hope to live in the city.
Yes, desire to live or dwell in the city, locative, nagare. Right. So here, it's kind of, maybe we might say, happening at the same time, or we can also express it as the absolutive as happening right before, but men setting out or leaving from the village, they desire to dwell in the city. So that you see how the absolutive and the finite present tense go together in that way?
Yeah, I understand now.
Good. Okay. Well, I think the more you do it, the more it will make sense. And also keep in mind, these are sort of not real sentences. They're sort of made up sentences. But the more you look at Pali, the more you'll see how these verbal forms work. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Let's try a couple more. Maybe we'll try golfin.
Okay.
Can you do for us then 18?
Babatasma rukham akaditum wanijena saha kasako gachati. It's in the farmer goes from the mountain to forest. Wait.
Not quite getting it. Say start again.
The nominative is kasako.
It's all the way over here. That's right. And then back up a little bit with the instrumental of accompaniment.
With the merchant.
Yes. And then we have the infinitive.
To drag.
And what are they dragging? The accusative.
Rukhang means the tree.
Yes. And then we have pabatasma. What case is that?
Pabatasma means ablative.
From the mountain.
From the mountain.
Right. And so the farmer goes with the merchant to drag the tree from the mountain. Yes. You see it now?
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Thank you. And then now we can try Hui Lin from Kuala Lumpur.
Hi, morning.
Guy, hi. Thanks for joining. Would you do for us, please, number 20?
Sure. Pandito, Sugatasa, Savakehi, Sadim, Basito, Ichanti. So I've got it as the wise man, Pandito, wishes to speak with the Buddha's disciples.
Yes, exactly. Right. So Savakehi Sading is which case, please?
That's instrumental.
Yes, and what is Sugatasa?
Sugadasa is genitive.
Yes, and what do we call Basitung?
That's infinitive from Basati.
Yes, perfect. Thank you. Very good. Okay, then we have Huang.
Yes, can you hear me?
I can. Would you do for us, please, 22?
Yes, 22. Tofani, Sanghariva, Udakena, Asinsitong, Upasako, Kumare, Ovadati.
Yes.
So, having collected flowers, the lay devotee advised boys to sprinkle water.
Yes, very good. Thank you. So as you said, so we can start with our absoluted, having collected flowers. Notice this is our neuter accusative, that ani suffix plural. Having collected flowers, then we go to our nominative, the subject, the lay follower, Ovadati, advises. And who are they advising? The accusative plural, Kumare, boys. And then we can stick in here our infinitive, to sprinkle them. And then how? Our instrumental, with water. Exactly as you said. Very good. Okay, thank you. And then we'll take just one more. We can have Skylar do 24, please.
Brahmanasa gehe asanesu nisiditum rajakasa puta ichanti. So the sons of the washerman, Rajaka, want to sit in the seats in the Brahman's house.
Exactly. Thank you. So we have to go all the way practically to the end of this sentence to find our nominative plural, putta, the children, or the sons, and then we have our genitive, rajakasa, wish, they, of the washerman, then we have our verb, ichanti, then we have our infinitive, nisiditung, to sit, we have our locative, on seats, and then we have another locative, in the house, and then we have another genitive, of the Brahman. Very good. And I think that covers it. Diane, were there any outstanding questions about this chapter on the YouTube?
No, we're all good here.
Wow, we're making such incredible progress. Although I see a question that has just popped up. Maybe I'll take it quickly from Huang.
Yes, that's about number 6, lesson 9.
Lesson 9, number 6. Hang on a second. Let me get there.
Thank you.
Oop. Okay. What is your question?
So can you re-explain that, please? It's not very clear for me because I Kumara Kukenasatim Kilitva Samudangangva Nahayanti. So I translate by boys go to the beach to bath and play with the dog. No?
Yes. So how I would take it, I would say,
because in using the run here is very hard.
Okay, let me try, okay? So I would start right here, kilitva, with the absolutive. Having played, then we have our instrumental of accompaniment, together with the dog. And then I would take the second instrument, second absolutive, and having gone to the sea, samudang, that's the accusative of gantva, object. Then our subject, the nominative plural, boys, naihayanti, bathe. So having played with the dog and having gone to the sea, boys bathe.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. And I see another question from Gillian. Did I say it right this time?
Yes, you did. It's Gillian. J. Think J, but right G. Sorry about that. Lesson 10, number 12.
Okay, hang on. Yes. Okay, I'll read it out for you.
It's questions just about one word. Vata, Vatani, that looks like it's neuter, but elsewhere we had Vata as cloth.
Is vata not, I think vata is indeed a neuter noun, vatang, and it's neuter plural accusative. And it's the object of dovitung, which is the infinitive, to wash clothes or cloths. I guess a plural of cloth is clothes. I'm not sure. It's the famous word of a sutta in the Majjhima Nikaya, the Vatta Sutta. So does that answer your question, Vatta?
Yes, thank you.
Okay,
you very
good.
much.
You're welcome. One more question, Catherine.
Yes, Stephen.
Yes.
I need clarification for lesson 10, number 2.
Okay.
The
Miga
migat.
tinang kaditva, the one I did. Okay, what did I do wrong?
Yes. Okay. No. I just for uyanang. Is this a dative singular or is it a neuter noun? Like to the
It's definitely not a. It's definitely not a neuter dative.
So
It's
dative singular.
No, I think it's an accusative singular.
To the park.
Yeah.
The park. So it's uyanang instead of uyanaya. I thought uyanang is
Accusative.
Plural. No. Dative.
No, it should be. It's a neuter noun, I believe, and it's found in the accusative singular case.
Singular.
Yeah, the park. One park.
The park.
Trying to find it for
park.
us. Yeah, because generally, verbs of motion take the accusative, not dative.
Oh, instead of dative, it is accusative. Huh?
So here you see in our list, uyana is a singular neuter noun ending in short a, uyana. And then uyanang would be, I believe, the accusative singular. And so this verb of motion, agachanti, they come, we use, of course, in English, you're quite right, this prepositional phrase, to the park, but in Pali it's expressed in the accusative. The destination of the coming is expressed in the accusative case. Okay, does that help?
It should be, yes. Thank you for the clarification.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Rob M.
Yeah, hi, Stephen. Could we just for a moment go back to the previous question, lesson 9, question 6?
Okay, hang on. Okay, I see it now.
Right. Now, the way that I translate it is, having gone to the ocean, the boys bathe with the dogs. But you put with the dogs with playing rather than gone to the ocean with the dog or bathing with the dogs. How do I know when so how do I know which sequence to put them in?
Yes, it's a good question, and it is ambiguous in this sentence, but I'm doing it simply by the nearness or the proximity. So since the absolutive here, kilidva, having played, sading kukurena is right next to it, and we know that the object, so to speak, of the absolutives generally lie right before them, I take it together as a group, a block. I wouldn't put it with the finite verb. You see that?
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
So maybe we should move on.
Excuse me, Stephen.
Yes.
Just 3 quick questions.
Okay, just 3. Go ahead.
Well, maybe not. So lesson 10, question 21, someone asked for how that was to be translated. And I typed in what is in the key because I couldn't trust what I had.
Okay, let me take a look. Samudang taritva dipang gantva vatani aharitang vanija ichanti, right? So having crossed, that's taritva, the sea, and then I take the next 2 together, and I put the word and in to help, and having gone, that's gachati in the absolutive to the island. That's again right next to it as the accusative. Then I have the subject of the sentence, which is the nominative plural here. Vanija, merchants, desire, ichanti, to bring. This is our infinitive, clothes, vatani. Is that what you had? Or something
That's
different?
actually what I had, crossing the sea and having gone, and yes, merchants desire to bring cloth to the island. It's just that the key, and I've mentioned this before, the key has it completely in another way. In the key, it says, merchants wish to cross the sea and go to the island to bring clothes.
I wouldn't take it that way, because what you've just said puts taritva in the infinitive and not the absolutive to cross. And so I would not use that translation. No, I would take it the way you and I have said it. Okay.
Okay. Well,
Was there one more question?
Surprising. Someone wanted to know, in sentence 2, is tinam accusative singular? And how about udakam?
Yes. Neuter.
Neuter.
Right, I think.
Okay.
Okay.
That'll do it then.
All right. Thank you, Diane. Thank you for your help. And so let's look now a little bit at, so as I said, we're skipping over lesson 11. Now we're doing a bit of lesson 12, so there may be some vocabulary which you didn't find in 12 or going backwards, but you'll find it, of course, in the glossary. Keep in mind there's a big glossary at the end of this book. And what I'd like to do, or maybe I should just quickly say, the reason why, if you're wondering, I'm skipping lesson 11 is because it's a presentation of the present participle, which I think in her effort to make it simple can be very confusing. And so to avoid this confusion, I'm just going to pass over it for now. This does not mean in any way one doesn't need to know what the present participle is in Pali, but perhaps not this way for now. And so what I'd like to look at very briefly, and of course you will do some of these exercises in our next class, is the full conjugation of the present tense, active voice of verbs, which has a lot of information, not only because it's the full conjugation, but it also introduces the pronouns, which you see here in parentheses, which are good to know, very important to know. And so we are familiar with, because we've only been doing third person, singular and plural, pachati, pachanti. And so this word so is he. It also could mean it or one. So the word so has this kind of double meaning. It could be a personal pronoun, but it also could be sort of not a person. And then te would be they cook. Now tvang is you. It's a bit sounding to me at least like the word thou, tvang. And the plural of tvang, which is all of you, which we don't have a great word perhaps unless you're from the south of the United States, where you might say y'all. The answer is tumhe, you all cook. And then the first person, I, ahang, I cook. And then we, which is the plural of the first person, we cook, is mayang. And so already we have here these 6 new pieces of information. And then of course we have the personal endings, the endings that indicate which person we're talking about, the personal endings. So we have pachami, I cook, pachasi, you cook, and pachati, he cooks. So notice, it's important to notice that the first person has a strengthening of that a, pachami, I cook. It's also strengthened in the first person plural, mayang pachama, we cook. Okay, and then second person plural, pachata, and pachanti, which you know. And so we're putting a lot more balls in the air, so to speak. We have a lot more information, but this is good to know, the full conjugation of the present tense active voice of verbs. And that is our paradigm, so to speak. Please have a close look at it. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this class, we'll be looking at a select few of exercise 12 exercises. And that is because I want to skip over ones which contain the present participle, and because I don't want to get confused. And so we'll stick to just the ones that I've selected for our class. Okay. So that is going to be, I think, our final visit to the Pali Primer. And then I wanted to talk about our next book, which is the Giảng Tilaka book. Now, the Giảng Tilaka book, I hope that most of you have been able to acquire a copy. It's not, as far as I'm aware, available freely. And so we can't just hand out a scan of the whole book, because that would be, in a sense, taking what's not given. But we can do something very close, which is I can give you a file which I have created, which is a word processing file, a Microsoft Word file of the readings, which might be helpful to you because you can adjust it however you see fit, as well as a scan of the grammatical explanations, which is here. And this has all been placed on the website. And so this page has a redundancy, in a sense, which is the fourth reading, which you will have in the Microsoft Word file, and then a glossary, as I mentioned, of the words in our chapter. And then we have our big grammar explanations. And so I can say, when I first encountered this book, I thought, wow, things are getting real now. And so we have our full paradigm of the masculine short A. So this is kind of not new for you. It's kind of like old hat. You're used to this already. You've seen it for a while. Our word here is the Dhamma, kind of a good word to know. The doctrine, the quality, and many other senses. So as I have said before in this class, the word Dhamma is not a word that one can just choose a single translation word and be done with it. It's a word that has lots of meanings, which has to be translated on a need-specific basis. And we have our neuters, which we've had already too. And then we're going to also have a whole new set, which is the feminine short I and the feminine long I. And so you might notice here from this cool looking grid with that kind of cool old school computer font that so many of the cases are the same. So in this case, the word rati, which is a feminine noun meaning night, in this case, the genitive, dative, instrumental, ablative, and possibly the locative all share just one form, ratiya. So that's good news and bad news. The good news is that you don't have to learn so many cases endings because it's all the same. The bad news is that you have to figure out which one is actually being used in your sentence, which takes some discernment. Also notice that it might seem all new, but you will start to look and see some family resemblances. So ratinang, which looks a lot to me like the anang suffix we had in the masculine short A, is just the A is changed to the I. Also, ratihi, which is the instrumental and ablative, we had in our short A the ehi, and this is ihi. So there are family resemblances. This is not just out of the blue. And so we're going to have a closer look at this on Wednesday or Thursday for you, our next class. Now we're going to start with our readings, and it's going to be exciting because it's going to be finally an ability to look at real Pali, Pali that the Buddha said. And we'll start, of course, we'll have a little bit of going for refuge. I hope now you can recognize Gacchami as a first person singular. I go. Gachami. I go. We'll talk about that more. And then we have a whole bunch of readings from the Anguttara Nikaya. Some of them I have color-coded to help us understand. I hope I create more understanding and not more confusion. And so this is what we're going to dig into after we briefly cover a few more Pali Primer examples next class. And so with that, I'll just ask if there are any final questions that anyone was not quite sure about, that I maybe misspoke, and I could try to address them right now. So I think we have Kamsavat.
Thank you, Stephen. Just a quick questions about the root of the words when we turn it to absolutive and infinitive. For example, to go, it's very different from gachati. So in general, what would be the general principle of recognizing the root? Because sometimes it's only it's a very short root to understand.
Yeah, well, keep in mind that if you have the electronic copy or even the paper copy of Pali Primer, all the verbs are listed together at the end, and I believe they're all listed along with their root. And so you could just check it there. If you're not sure what the root is, you can find out that way. But in terms of just how to know, it's also a memorization thing. We just have to sort of remember that the root of gachati is gam, and that gantva is related to gachati. So I hope that answers your question. So being able to slowly learn our roots is actually an important part of our Pali study in sort of the long view. We've only taken a few steps towards this so far. And then I think we have one final question from Hitet.
Hi, Stephen. Thank you. Very quickly, can we go back to exercise 10, number 12 from Pali Primer, please?
Okay, give me a second.
Thank you.
Okay, what is your question?
As in this case, my question is, can dovitong, the infinitive, take the verb, the absolutive autoritua? So I'm not clear if the washerman is already in water when this sentence is said.
Yeah, it's a good question. And as I've said several times, a lot of the sentences in Pali Primer in particular are ambiguous. It's hard to say exactly, and it is possible to interpret them in different ways. But I've translated it as having gotten into the water. That's udakang otaritva, right? Mm-hmm. And then I just keep going in order. To wash, the infinitive, and the object of that is clearly vatani, clothes. The washerman calls, that's the finite verb, pakosati, to or for the sun. So does that answer your question a little bit?
One more question, Stephen. Do I need to differentiate which comes first, which like in the coming days when I read actual Pali?
I don't really understand your question. I think maybe we'll set that question aside when we start reading actual Pali together next class.
Okay. Yeah.
And it takes a little practice, but I think we'll be able to do it together. Okay.
Thank you.
Well,
thank you,
you're welcome. So thank you all very much. And I hope you all come back. And I hope this was helpful for you. And I'd like to especially thank my co-hosts who have helped me behind the scenes enormously, because I would never be able to do this alone. So thank you. And I do hope that this is all making sense. Again, all the information for this class should be found on our monastery website. That's baus.org. And then I will again try to take questions at the beginning of our next class, which is either Wednesday for me or perhaps for some friends in Asia, Thursday morning. Thank you very much. I'll see you next time, and happy studying Pali.
Thank you.
Bye-bye now.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.